Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I just took my sons to hit baseballs. Even with all these current events going on, I have continued to throw baseballs to my sons. We've hit 3 times this week, even though the baseball season has been at least shut down temporarily. Now, today I'm going to do something interesting. I'm going to go, well, I'll tell you when I get to it, but I decided to go back and look at 3 of the figures from the financial crisis, and I'll show you how that all unfolded, and then see how they link up to what's going on now. I think it'll be an eye-opener for you, no question about it. Okay, and tying them into how they would tie back to Ripple, of course. Okay, but the first thing I wanted to show you is this tweet from Mr. B. Why isn't anyone on TV calling for emergency regs so banks can free up their $5 to $27 trillion in nostro and offer the world inexpensive money transfers? Banks certainly need money, and people need fast, cheap, and dependable money transfers now. He makes a very good point, and he copied it to Representative Darren Soto as well as Ripple. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody responds to that, because that's a very good question. Ripple's been talking about this for years, but all of a sudden we don't see people talking about, everybody needs liquidity and money, but these nostro accounts, wouldn't that be a great idea to free up that money? Why is nobody talking about it? He makes a good point. Okay, next, from the Crypto D, at the Crypto D sent me this. I thought this was fascinating. Breaking. This is from this guy, Ganesh Haramuth. Let me see if I follow him. Breaking. Rothschild's economist says new digital systems should be launched to distribute cash as people are hoarding cash in this crisis. Soon governments will launch their own CBDCs to replace cash. Are you ready? And this is from an actual article, The Economist. Governments also need to jerry-rig digital systems so they are able to distribute cash to households directly. If funds can be sent instantly through mobile phones or online bank accounts, people will feel more confident and avoid hoarding cash and slowing the recovery when the current event recedes. Let's go. He's got several parts of this thread. Soon the digital cash will be rolled out through CBDCs and new DLT platform. Be ready, guys. And then he's got this. But even with this fearful list of side effects, the advantages are overwhelming. Cash will be distributed fast. Vulnerable people will be able to get by. Households will be confident enough to spend when conditions improve. And firms will keep their workforces and plants intact, ready to get back to action when this dark episode has passed. And then he has tweeted, here's the actual article from the Economist magazine, and then he's got this article from the IMF, and I'll cover this. It says China will launch their official public blockchain in April 2020. Now, many of you may not remember, but China, before all this happened, China was going to pilot their central bank digital currency in 3 of their provinces. That's something a lot of people, you can look it up. It's in an AMB crypto article. Look it up. But anyway, and then he's got this tweet from Darth Ripple. China launches national blockchain network in 100 cities by April 2020. All right. So now let's go to this XRP Crypto Wolf about this IMF article. The IMF set up a potential hybrid called synthetic CBDC would involve collaboration between the central banks and the private sector. The private sector would issue coins fully backed with central bank reserves under the supervision of central banks. Interesting. Okay, now here's what inspired the video that I'm doing today. I'm going to show you this. Let's see. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. What this is, To the Lifeboats, who is a definite subscribe on YouTube, but To the Lifeboats did a video on his channel the other day. It's called The Big Crash Has Arrived. And he takes you back to the financial crisis, and he takes a couple of the, let me see if you can see them here. The Big Short and HBO's Panic, The Untold Story of the 2008 Financial Crisis. He takes those two movies that were made about the financial crisis, and he gives some of his take, and then takes clips and really mixes this up and puts it together in a really neat format. It's a very good video. You should go watch. He's To the Lifeboats. Go give him a subscribe as well. But I watched this video, and as I'm watching it, it gave me a thought. I said, you know, something I've never done. There were three in the financial crisis in the United States. There were three central figures in the financial crisis, and I wanted to talk about this for a second, and then I'll show you what I found. So I was thinking to myself, one thing I've never done. Now remember, the three guys was Ben Bernanke, Timothy Geithner, and Hank Paulson. Hank Paulson was the Secretary of Treasury. Okay, I believe at the time Geithner was the head of the New York Fed, which Glenn Hutchins is the head of now. And Bernanke was the Federal Reserve Chairman when the financial crisis hit. Well, I'll never forget the scene in some movie I saw where Hank Paulson literally had to get on his knees to talk Nancy Pelosi into making sure they passed the TARP. And remember, the custodian of TARP was BNY Mellon, who was at the very center of all this Ripple stuff. Dead center. All right. But I got to thinking when I was watching To the Lifeboats video, I've never gone and looked at, because any type of, remember what this is all about, what I've told you this is all about, and I don't care what it is, anything having to do with digital assets, Ripple, all of it, in my opinion, is about these people getting together sometime during or right after the financial crisis and saying, look, we need to put together the solutions to the problem so that next time we have a financial crisis, we don't run into this again, and that we are not depending on politicians and we don't have to kneel to politicians hoping that they're in the right frame of mind so that the whole world financially doesn't melt down. But the one thing I've never done is gone back and looked at these guys and found out what they're doing now and how they might be a part of the solution. In other words, of course, they're going to be the people that a lot of the people in finance go to and say, okay, tell us about the problems of what happened then so that we can put together a plan to fix it. And I believe that was a global plan. Okay. So I decided I would go check out all three of these guys and look at what they've been doing. And the answer to what most of them have been doing is really, and this is what happens with everybody in government and these elite types, is that whether they fail or succeed, and especially if they fail, they're then held up for the rest of their life as a hero. But whether they fail or succeed, once you're in the Goldman Sachs, SEC, Treasury Secretary, Federal Reserve, you basically the rest of your life, you're appointed to one thing or the next, or you are put at a think tank, or you go off and you do talks like this at the Brookings Institution, but you're basically looked at like you're one of the geniuses of the world for the rest of your life. That's how their world works. Once you graduate from an Ivy League school and then you get your job at either Goldman Sachs or you go to the SEC, the Treasury, or the Federal Reserve, that's how life works for these guys. So I knew that these guys and also what a lot of them do is they'll go and they'll be appointed to be like the president of Harvard or Stanford. That's how their world works. Okay. But I knew that these guys, they had to be, that whatever is going to happen as a solution to the financial crisis, these guys have to be involved. So I decided I would go and find out what all three of them have been up to and what organizations they're a part of, and then how, if at all, that leads back to what Ripple and digital assets. You have to understand first, I believe at least these two guys were with, I know this guy was the CEO of Goldman Sachs. I'm pretty sure at least he was. Pretty sure they were both possibly with Goldman Sachs, but I would have to look. My point is I haven't gone into these guys in this video because once I went to Hank Paulson, I started with him. It was a complete video. So that in this video, I can't cover the other two guys. I'll deal with them in the next couple of videos. So today we're going to see where Hank Paulson leads us. And that starts on his Wikipedia page. And yes, you can see he was the CEO of Goldman Sachs. He was also, he was the 74th Secretary of the Treasury. Like I told you, he was the Secretary of the Treasury in the financial crisis. This whole page is a lot about Goldman Sachs, and then the Secretary of the Treasury, and then all about the financial crisis, because that's really defined his career. But as you get down towards the bottom here, you start to look at some different things that he's a part of after the financial crisis and after he retired and was no longer the Treasury Secretary. The one I'll focus on first is this, the Climate Leadership Council. This is what they do. They go off to all of these different organizations like this. So I went to look at the climate leader. He's a leader of the Climate Leadership Council. So I decided I would go look at this and look who's on the Climate Leadership Council. So as we go through this, we will see, first we see Ben Bernanke, Ray Dalio. We see a lot of different names that you probably recognize. Well, the one that I would like to draw your attention to would be Klaus Schwab. I'm making the point here, folks, that all these global elites, they're all in the same club. They're all a part of the same organizations. They all do the same stuff. They all went to the same schools. They're all in the same world global organizations. And so it's important that we look at this. Klaus Schwab, I don't want you to forget, not that one. Leadership and Governance, right? World Economic Forum. Who started it? Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chairman. And yes, that's the same economic forum that said that XRP and JP Morgan coin will be interbank, intrabank settlement digital assets amongst central banks. We showed you the document. Also on here, I just wanted to bring your attention to one more. I mean, we could go anywhere with a lot of these people, like Janet Yellen. She used to be a Federal Reserve chairman. Lawrence Summers, that's Larry Summers, and he would be the same Larry Summers who is a board advisor at the Digital Currency Group, which is run by Barry Silbert, which Glenn Hutchins is also. Remember, Glenn Hutchins, New York Federal Reserve Board. He is now the chairman, just like Timothy Geithner was. So Digital Currency Group is the investor in every major blockchain company on the planet Earth, pretty much, that any of the big ones, Coinbase and Ripple included. All right, and so I decided this is the first thing that Hank Paulson that I saw that I wanted to look into. Well, then I saw the Paulson Institute, and this is Paulson announced formation of the Paulson Institute, a nonpartisan, independent think and do tank dedicated to fostering a U.S.-China relationship that serves to maintain global order in a rapidly evolving world. Well, I was just messing around on the Paulson Institute and decided to look at if there was anything in Hank Paulson's resume that was in addition to what he had on his Wikipedia page. So I was just reading through here, and I get to this part. Paulson also co-chairs the advisory board of the Bloomberg New Economy Forum, a conference of global leaders focused on emerging economies and technologies. Listen close. The New Economy Forum is committed to promoting the smooth transition from the old economy, one based on labor-intensive manufacturing and trade in goods, to a new one focused on industrial automation, digital services, and its exchanges of data. Right? So let's go and look at the New Economy Forum, which I had not heard. Before I do anything, I want to make sure you understand this. Michael Bloomberg of Bloomberg fame, right? Michael Bloomberg is the one that started this New Economy Forum. And you'll notice at the top here, this reminded me of something instantly when I looked at it. Bloomberg terminal demo request. So if you want a Bloomberg terminal demo request, you can click there. And he's just selling his product. But it reminded me of something a while back. This is from December 15th, 2017. Ethereum, Ripple, and Litecoin have arrived on Bloomberg terminals. Of According to a Fortune report, sources said the addition of the new price data is aimed at Forex traders seeking to explore the new instruments. They also suggested that Bloomberg terminal data for the new cryptocurrencies is being provided by Luxembourg-based exchange Bitstamp. Luxembourg, by the way, if you remember, that is also on the Rothschild financial report, because I remember Luxembourg is where their financial firm is located. And also Luxembourg, we've seen at least 3 photos where Chris Larson and Brad Garlinghouse have either been in Luxembourg meeting with the finance minister, or where the Luxembourg finance minister is at Ripple headquarters meeting with them. Those are the things that just pop in my head. Let's go back to this new economy forum. This is the topics section. Let's read some of this. With the profound shifts in the global economy, the world needs a new global convening platform to reflect the influence of emerging economies, to address the future of public and private partnerships, and to identify solutions for cross-border issues affecting us all. The forum's goal is to stimulate productive, fact-driven dialogue among participants in an effort to promote deeper understanding and develop actionable solutions on important global issues. We need real conversations that produce real change. Global governance. Post-war institutions are struggling to adapt to the realities of the new economy. Meanwhile, China is establishing new bodies as it advocates to its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative. How can the great powers avoid the I don't even know how to say that word, Thucydides trap? The forum will explore ideas to advance a new global order, one that builds on the success of the existing system and accommodates the aspirations of rising powers. Trade, and then they've got a section on trade, technology, artificial intelligence, urbanization, the new economy. Let me see, finance and capital markets. Rising economies from Asia to Africa are embracing fintech, ushering vast numbers of unbanked citizens into the global economy. Existing financial institutions must adapt their business models to hasten financial inclusion. Wall Street and the city should be braced for growing competition as Singapore, Dubai, and other hubs capture explosively growing trade and investment flows between countries of the global south. A major challenge for central bankers as the financial landscape shifts, avoiding the next financial crisis. This is what it's all about, folks, is avoiding the next financial crisis, as well as a new global order. Okay? All right, so next. So let's look at what the leadership of the new economic forum is. This is where I wanted to look. Just flip through here and see if any faces jumped off the page at me that are related to Ripple or what Ripple is doing. And of course, as I've told you many times, all of these people are in the same clubs. They went to the same schools. They worked for the same companies. It's all one group of people. They're all in the same club. All right, so let's scroll down and I'll show you. We've seen him before. He's the CEO of MasterCard. Let's keep going down and we will see who jumps off the page first. We know Bill Gates from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? Let's see here. Who do we have first? Well, so far it's not anybody that really jumps up. There's one. First, this is how we got here because of Hank Paulson. Does anybody remember this guy? Raghuram Rajan. He's the former governor, Reserve Bank of India, professor of finance, University of Chicago Booth School of Business, and also one of the guys that spoke on stage at Swell 2019. I watched him. I saw the guy. All right. He happens to be on this new economy forum. Let's keep scrolling down, see if we see anybody else that might have a tie to Ripple. There's one. Condoleezza Rice. Condoleezza Rice is on this board, and she happens to work Anna Manuel, who is on Ripple's board of directors, works. She's a co-founder and partner along with former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, former National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley, and former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates. Rice, Hadley, Gates, and Manuel. So there's your Ripple tide there. Now, let's see if there's anybody else. Well, I see one right there. This guy, whose last name I can't pronounce, Tharman, I'll say that, Senior Minister and Coordinating Minister for Social Policies, the Republic of Singapore. Well, do you remember this guy, Anthony Lim, who was one of the strategic advisors for Ripple? Anthony Lim, he was previously Managing Director and President Americas at Singapore's Sovereign Wealth Fund, GIC, Private Ltd. Now, that GIC basically manages the wealth of Singapore. And this is the Prime Minister of Singapore. And who reports to him? Deputy Chairman Tharman, whatever his last name is. Okay, so you can kind of see how all paths lead back to Ripple. And we also want to mention that the same guy at the World Economic Forum that we first saw, this guy, Tharman, whatever his last name is, he's one of the leaders he's the governing committee of the World Economic Forum. So, as I was looking around in this, I found another thing that I found interesting, just that I wanted to make. It doesn't really have to do with Ripple, but it has to do with digital assets. You remember how a few weeks ago, the official father of the Digital Asset Investor channel told me that if Goldman Sachs is involved and JP Morgan's not, if Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are not involved, then digital assets and this transition is not going to happen. And so we've looked into them a lot. Well, one thing that popped up when I was looking around at the New Economy Forum from 2019, and this video caught my attention because till now, and maybe I missed it, but I did not realize that Goldman Sachs had created a digital bank, but they have. Listen to this.
Talk to me about Marcus.
Sure.
So you've just rolled it out in Japan.
By the way, this is at the New Economy Forum in 2019, where David, what's his name? Solomon is the CEO of Goldman now.
No,
right?
we haven't.
You're
we
about
haven't.
to?
No, we haven't, and we're not about to.
In the future.
Well, we may in the future. I'll go as far as that we may in the future. We're building a digital bank digital consumer bank that's primarily at the moment focused on the United States. We have taken some deposits in the UK, but at the moment we're primarily focused in the United States, and we're quite excited about the progress we've made over the course of the last 3 years. We've built a digital consumer platform that has $55 billion of deposits, has 4 to 5 million customers, has about $7 billion of loans. We've built a credit card platform with Apple that we're quite excited about, and also allows us to partner with others in the future. And so we think we have a very interesting, disruptive platform that allows us to help consumers with their financial needs in a digital format with more transparency, more information, less friction, and we're excited about what we think we can do over the next 5 to 10 years.
So this is new clients, younger clients, or do you cannibalize your existing clients?
No, it's really a different business for us. If you think about Goldman Sachs over a long period of time, we had a very high-end wealth management business, but we really haven't dealt with the everyday consumer. No. And so this is a new business for us. When you look at the client list that we're attracting, there are people across all demographics, all ages. I think there's no question, I have kids who are in their 20s, and there's no question they're very attracted to the digital applications and the use of ease. They're not typically walking into a more traditional bank branch or using a more traditional offering. But there are people across the age spectrum that are intrigued by what we offer. We offer attractive deposit rates. We offer less friction. And we're trying to develop products that we think will make financial life easier for consumers with less friction and more transparency.
When will that be rolled out in Asia?
I can't predict when and if it will come to Asia. We're focused on building a really good business that's primarily based in the United States. And as we make progress, we'll think about whether or not it makes sense for us to expand in other places.
So let me tell you what this is, folks. Let me decipher this for you. I went to their new platform. It's called Marcus, okay? So you'll see here Marcus by Goldman Sachs. Nowhere on the Marcus platform will you see anything that talks about digital assets. You're not going to see anything having to do with that. But these guys are smart. What you're really looking at, this is me talking, this is my opinion. these guys, you're looking at these guys getting into digital assets. They're not showing you that on the front end. On the front end, it looks like it's traditional finance, deposit your US dollars or whatever. I believe they are doing this until everyone's ready. I'll bet, just write it down. You heard it here first. I'm even downloading this app onto my phone, and I'm probably going to open an account just to play around with it more. But I'm telling you right now, think about what we've been talking about. We've been talking about where this is all going is apps on your phone where people can send money to each other using digital assets. I believe that these guys knew it when they knew that they had to get into this business because they know the whole system's about to change. But I believe that they know, they're smart enough to know that they can't advertise on the front end that what they're doing is about digital assets there, because they don't want everybody to start jumping in yet. When they're ready, mark my words, write it down. These guys are going to have digital assets on this platform. Goldman Sachs has never created some app for average people to get on and open accounts. These guys are positioning themselves. Now, I want to leave you with one other, just an interesting piece of information. I was curious how they came up with the name Marcus, and I found out something I didn't know. The reason they named it Marcus is because Goldman Sachs is named after Marcus Goldman, was the guy who literally created Goldman Sachs. And then I believe he later partnered with his maybe son-in-law, and it became Goldman Sachs, with his son-in-law's last name being Sachs. But Marcus it's called Marcus. What a better name? What better name to give this than Marcus, and name it after the guy that started Goldman Sachs? My prediction, just to reiterate this, my prediction is that Goldman Sachs, right here in a stealth way, has just created one of the first apps for your phone where digital assets, including XRP, Bitcoin, and all these things, and Goldman Sachs, I'm sure, will have their Goldman Sachs coin or whatever at some point. But this is one of the places it's going to happen. I had never heard of this. Maybe I missed something, but I had no idea that they had done this. All right. Now I want to finish this video by playing you a couple of clips. This is Brad Garlinghouse. Now this is all about a new world order and globalism, folks. Make no mistake. But they've all been honest with you from day one, folks. Everybody has been upfront about what is going on here, and this has not been a secret. You just have to be looking. So listen to Brad Garlinghouse here this is from Swell 2018.
There is an opportunity to be a builder and to partner with the industry to really enable something that hasn't yet been seen. We believe we're at the dawn of another era of globalization. But when you step back and think about it, like this visual, like the missing wheels on this skateboard, something's missing. When you think about what globalization requires to truly enable globalization, it really is a three-legged piece. Much like fire that requires fuel, oxygen, I'm having trouble with this clicker, there we go, fuel, oxygen, and heat to bring that flame together. The same thing is true around globalization. There's three networks that we think have to come together to work interoperably. The first two are data interoperability. That's the internet. It has had a profound impact on globalization. The second is goods and shipping. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But the third and missing piece in terms of interoperable networks is around money. Money today is not interoperable. All of us, if you're here at Swell, it's certainly something that you know well. Now, if we step back and look at how we got here in other interoperable areas, the goods industry, some of you might have wondered, there's a kind of mock-up of a container, a cargo container downstairs. Some of you may have noticed and thought, what's up with the cargo container? It's kind of odd to be placed there. When Ripple thinks about what we're building, we use a cargo container sometimes as a metaphor for the interoperability. The reason is this is a visual in the early 1900s of what a shipping dock looked like. Now you think about the pain of enabling shipping when every port had a different infrastructure. Every package was packaged up differently. It made shipping incompatible. It wasn't interoperable. Now imagine taking that shipping one of these packages and moving it onto a train. Everything was not interoperable. In the 50s, we invented something kind of mundane, the cargo container. This cargo container enabled interoperability between boats, trains, trucks, and over the next 2 decades, we saw a 700% increase in global commerce. This was the interoperability of different networks coming together to reduce friction and reduce cost in a very material way. Now, if you look at that on the data side, and I'll spend...
Okay, that's all I wanted you to hear of that. There's 2 things I want you to get out of that. The first is that he's talking about globalism. These guys have been up front with everyone from day one. But there's the second thing in that video clip that I want you to remember. And that is, and this is just one of the many ways that I know that this is all these people are in the club. They know exactly what the plan is. They've all been working together for a long time now. I've heard that cargo, the cargo analogy, I've heard it in 3 places, maybe 4, but 3 that I know of. I've heard Brad Garlinghouse use that cargo container analogy. I've heard Chris Larson talk about the cargo container, and there's one other guy I've heard talk about it, and I think he talked about it. I think he talked about it on stage beside the SEC chairman, and that is Glenn Hutchins. He was comparing digital assets to. He used that analogy talking about the protocol, and he was describing this. And I want to say that he did it right beside the SEC chairman. And remember who Glenn Hutchins is. He's on the board at Digital Currency Group, which is probably the most powerful venture capital firm in blockchain. He is also the chairman of the New York Fed, which is what Tim Geithner's position was when the financial crisis happened. Glenn Hutchins is one of the most powerful men in the world, from what I can tell. Somehow, some way, he learned about their cargo container analogy. I wonder how that happened. Now, finally, I want to finish this out, and I've told you this many, many times, but I'm going to finish this video out. This is Brad Garlinghouse closing out his speech at 2018 Swell, saying yet again one of those things that I have heard over the last couple of years, and I'm like, who says things like that? That's with some startup company. Well, here it is.
So in summary, I will conclude just by saying I think it is a profound honor to have you all here. As we heard this morning from President Clinton, it truly does take a movement to change the world. When I joined Ripple about 3.5 years ago, somebody in the audience asked me, why is it that I wanted to join Team Ripple? And I quoted, a gentleman who's often quoted in Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs. I think many people in Silicon Valley want to put their little dent in the universe. And I think by working with everyone in this room, we have the opportunity to do that in a pretty profound way. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you all for participating over the next couple of days. And I look forward to meeting more of you as I'll be around the next couple of days. Look forward to meeting more of you then. Thank you very much.
I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button. And tell your friends and family that we are here to put a dent in the universe, as in the globe, as in global. Thank you for listening.